Founder of AVET Project, but I never fly through the airwaves alone.
Good morning. I'm Glenn McGuffey, manager of your Brevard County Veteran Service Team, and we're thrilled to be here again and bring you information.
We got a great show.
Oh yeah, much value about special subjects and special people that are veterans, and information and news for veterans and their families. That's very important. And as has been our forte most of the time lately, we have some special guests here and some special information. And I'm going to let Garen start off with talking about our guest. And we've got one coming in by phone. We got one here in the studio with us.
Certainly, Glenn. But before we get to that, AVET Project has had a fundraiser going on. As a lot of you listeners and supporters of AVET Project know, Kel-Tec, this local firearms manufacturer right here in Cocoa, American-made, American parts, built right here, warranted for life, and they employ 40% veterans. They donated a KSG. It's one of the hottest items they have that they manufacture. They can't even keep them in stock because they have such a demand from the Customs and Border Patrol and the State Department and other governmental agencies that this item called the KSG, it's the Kel-Tec shotgun, 12 gauge, 15 shot, dual magazine, 7 in each tube. They can use lethal or non-lethal. It's a phenomenal firearm. They donated one for our drawing to help support AVET Project and our programs and services. And earlier we did do the drawing and we have a winner. I'm going to ask everybody, especially those that bought tickets. They were only $10 and we only sold 300 tickets, so your odds were great. Well, we have a winner, and I'm going to make that announcement of the winner at the end of the program, so stay tuned for that. Glenn, as you were mentioning, we have a couple of great guests with us. Both of them have been on American Warrior Radio in the past.
That's absolutely correct, and we're super thrilled to have them back and talk about their areas of expertise information. We've got an expert here and a recent combat veteran with us that does some excellent music and a new genre, and I think that's called mill hop, isn't it, Gary?
It certainly is. That's Soldier Hard. Y'all hear him as he does the intro music and the bumper music for American Warrior Radio. We're going to be joined by Sergeant Jeff Barrelero, also known as Soldier Hard, in a few moments, and he is a combat vet, like Glenn said. But in studio right now, from the Space Coast, we have Dr. Scott Fairchild. And if you don't know Dr. Scott, well, where have you been? But he's been on American Warrior Radio. He's very involved in the veterans movement. But for those, it's been a while since we had you on the air, Doc.
It has
Share
been.
a little bit about your history, because you got a rich military background yourself.
Well, good morning to each and every one of you, and especially to our veterans and family members out there. I was on active duty with the Army for about 21 years, served in military units and combat units, but also served as a clinical psychologist for about the last 10 years or so of my career. So I've made it my mission to be there and be available to support soldiers and their families, service members and their families, once they get out. And once they're out of the military, it's sometimes a bumpy road. And so we jump in and we provide support, we provide evaluations, we provide information that will help them get what they deserve to have in their benefits from the VA and from other resources. So we're so happy to be here today, and we're excited, and we're excited to hear who won that drawing too.
For sure. Now, what was your MOS, your military occupational specialty?
Initially, I worked as a medical service corps officer where I was involved in administration. So I spent a little time defending the pipeline up there in Alaska from the Russians. Not sure they really wanted it anyway. Spent a little time at assignments in Fort Lewis and Hawaii and a variety of other places, Fort Polk, Louisiana and the like. But about halfway through the career, I decided that what I wanted to do was to be able to help some of the soldiers who were experiencing difficulty with that infamous post-traumatic stress disorder. At the University of Denver, I was blessed to have a mentor by the name of Tom Williams, who had 2 tours of Vietnam as a Marine. And he taught us a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder. And in fact, he and a couple of his colleagues, Jim Goodwin and others, wrote the first book on post-traumatic stress disorder. It was published by the DAV. And that book opened the door to many others seeing what post-traumatic stress disorder was all about. And now you could fill rooms and rooms and rooms with books about post-traumatic stress disorder.
Which is great, because the information that's out there, you just can't have enough of it, especially with one of these invisible wounds of war. Yeah, Glenn?
Yeah, exactly. And I know not hardly a day goes by in my office that I don't pick up some information about some new treatment regime for post-traumatic stress disorder and other information about post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm interested in later on in the show delving down into that with Dr. Fairchild, because there are some things that VA does, and of course that's my side of the business, is helping our veterans and their families, survivors as the case may be, with their claims to maximize their opportunity to get their claims done. But there's some offshoots of this beast called post-traumatic stress disorder that I worry has a stereotype out in the civilian community that can have some adverse effects upon our veterans, particularly with the employment issue.
Right, and you know, we're going to be joined in just a moment by, as I said, Soldier Hard, also known as Sergeant Jeff Barrelero. Jeff, can you hear me?
Fine, how you doing, Karen? Thanks for having me. I apologize, my voice is going out right now.
Hey, no problem, brother. Thank you so much for joining us. And as I mentioned to the audience, frequent listeners of American Warrior Radio know that you actually produced and wrote the intro music for American Warrior Radio and the bumper music we have. But you have a new CD out called Road to Recovery. Before we get to that, and I want to play a piece for the audience, we got Dr. Scott Fairchild here in the studio with us. We wanted to make this segment pretty much all about post-traumatic stress disorder and the ramifications of being diagnosed with it, as well as how you come about this disorder. But tell me something for the audience out there. You're a 10-year U.S. Army vet with 3 combat tours. What have you been doing since you've been out?
I've been just doing music, just concentrating on music. I created my own independent record label, and I've been concentrating on that pretty much every day, doing something that involves with music. That's pretty much my life.
And the reason is, and we've talked about this quite a bit in the past, Redcon One is your record label. If for anybody listening, if you want to listen to some great music, some really talented artists, and Soldier Heart, you're kind of the headliner on the label. But Redcon One's the record label. This new edition that you've got out, Road to Recovery, it's gotten quite a bit of notoriety. Can you mention a couple interviews you've done that have really hit mainstream?
Yes. My new album that I just released is called A Therapy Session. The one before that was called Road to Recovery. But yeah, I did a TV interview with CNN. I also was on National Public Radio, also known as NPR, and also Swiss Public Radio too. So yeah, I released it less than a month ago, and I'm getting a lot of good recognition and good feedback out there.
Right, and Therapy Session is your latest release, and I've got the Road to Recovery CD in my hands right now, and our engineer Vince is going to play a piece from that, and it's the title track, Road to Recovery. Everybody, let's give this a listen, kind of set the tone for this episode of American Warrior Radio.
Sounds good.
Change, I know deep down inside
All right, that's just a bit of the Road to Recovery song off of Redcon 1 label, Soldier Hard, Road to Recovery. He's got another album out now called Therapy Session. I encourage everybody to get a copy of this. Jeff, real quick, how can folks find out more about you online?
Guys, it's real simple. Just go to soldierhard.www.com, or even just search Google Soldier Hard. You'll find me.
Yeah, you come up pretty quick. I want to mention that you do some remixes of your previous songs on this particular album, Road to Recovery. Shame on Y'all has always been one of my favorites, and this particular remix, you incorporate a lot of your other artists on the label. You happy with the way that came out?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely happy with what came out, because what it did is it brought something new. It brought something new to the original version, and the original version, I created that when I was just a solo artist and I didn't have no record label. I was just doing everything independently on my own. And bring in the Shame on Y'all remix, it also brought another perspective from other warfighters' point of view, because, like I said, I got soldiers on my label, Marines on my label, and I also got Air Force on my label too. So it brought their point of view on what they thought of the subject of Shame on You. Not thinking veterans, not appreciating who we are, what we do.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm very happy with how it came out.
Outstanding, and I encourage everybody to get a copy of this for sure. You got to check him out online. And I want to get into the topic that we're talking about, because it kind of is a prevalent theme through a lot of your music, and that's suffering this invisible wound of war. And we got Dr. Fairchild here as an expert, and Glenn's handled thousands upon thousands of post-traumatic stress disorder claims. You don't mind us talking about this, because I know that's part of your mission, is to get the word out about that there is hope after being diagnosed. How many tours of combat did you do?
I did three of them, three tours.
And Iraq, Afghanistan?
Iraq, no, not Afghanistan. I did Iraq, and I did Operation Southern Watch, which was in Kuwait and Iraq, and also did a Vulcan mission out in Kosovo.
Yeah, and I know you've been dealing with the VA, Jeff, to get your claims done, and I know that's been a long, harrowing experience for you, just dealing with the backfeed that Garen's been giving me. But when were you first diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder?
The first time was December 2010. I got out of the Army in July of 2010, and it didn't see the VA until December. And that's when they told me, and I didn't really even think about it, but, they told me that, and everything just made sense, and I just told my story, just telling them how I was and how I am, and that's when they came up with that, and then eventually 3 doctors ended up saying the same thing, and Dr. Fairchild being one of them, too.
And that's interesting, Dr. Fairchild, you deal with these wounds of war every day in your practice. This post-traumatic stress disorder, for the benefit of the audience, what is it, and how does somebody be diagnosed with it?
Well, Garen, these invisible wounds of war, our valiant warriors head over to the combat zone, and they're fired up and ready to go, and they all do a superb job of carrying out their missions. Unfortunately, while they're in the combat zone, they have to develop skills to survive. And their brain moves into a mode that's fight or flight and survive mode, and once it does, it has an impact on the body. In fact, it actually changes the brain. When these valiant warriors come back to their communities, unfortunately, they don't need all of those skills anymore, but those skills keep on going, because once you lose your innocence and once you have learned those survivor skills, they're going to stick with you. So, of course, they respond to loud noises. They'll respond to somebody tapping them on the shoulder. They'll respond to by sitting in the back of a restaurant with their back to the wall because they don't feel safe. They may see a young child on the side of the road with a backpack or with a box, and immediately they're going to go into that fight or flight mode, because that takes them right back to the combat zone. We call these triggers, and then it literally changes their brain, and we can actually see those changes in the brain with something we call SPECT scanning, where we can actually identify the changes that have taken place.
And can you relate? Just listening to the music that we just listened to had a whole bevy to me of symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder that were being talked about in the song. And how can you relate that to Jeff from what we talked about? And of course, we just talked briefly about his post-traumatic stress disorder.
Sure, absolutely. Any veteran, especially those who've had multiple combat tours, once you go into that situation over and over again, we've had so many individuals who actually feel more comfortable back in the combat zone than they do back in their community, and that's really unfortunate because they have. They have the problems that go along with it. They'll have intrusive thoughts. They'll re-experience the experiences they had in war. They'll have nightmares. They'll have dreams. They'll try to avoid situations that may involve the military and the combat. Other individuals are maybe drawn to the movies, and then they regret it the night after because they don't get any sleep. So there's a lot of things that occur, even to the point of the high rate of suicides we're seeing in veterans, which we're now seeing 18 veterans a day committing suicide. That's, mind you, that's one every 80 minutes. That is just unbelievable. And
I want to talk about that. Jeff, Soldier Heart, what the doc was just talking about and Glenn mentioned, ring a bell? I mean, these signs and symptoms, I know from knowing you for some time now that you use your music as a vehicle, a coping method really, for the signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress. So does this all sound pretty familiar to you?
Yeah, definitely. To me, it's my therapy. But unfortunately, I can't do music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, when I'm not doing music, that's when my mind starts racing a million, thinking about a million things at one time. You know what I'm saying? So, it's like I tell people sometimes, it's like when you go to sleep, you go to sleep. When I go to sleep, I go to Baghdad. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Pretty much every night.
Wow, that really puts it into perspective. And you're out there in the community, Jeff. You perform at a lot of different venues. I know you're always looking for opportunities to perform in front of the troops, active duty troops. Can you share with us, say, one of your most recent performances for the troops?
My most recent one was at Fort Lewis, Washington. I did a Soldiers Day celebration, and also Fort Bliss, Texas. I went out there and did the single Soldiers Day celebration out there too. And for the most part, it's really honorable. You know what I mean? I feel good about myself and whatnot. But the hardest part is when I'm doing shows for like veterans, combat vets. That's the hardest because you know what I mean. They hear my story and they could relate to it, and then we'll sit and talk with them, and I'll sit and talk with them, and they'll tell me their stories, and it gets kind of draining, man, because it's like, when does it end? You know what I'm saying? It's just hard to explain, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you're living there in it all the time, and when you go out and share with others that have that common experience, because like you said, Doc, not every combat warrior is going to be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, but what kind of numbers are we talking about for those that do develop these signs and symptoms?
Well, the numbers are the national study that took a look at it said we can expect somewhere between 20 and 25% of individuals will develop these symptoms, and you can see also that a lot of times those symptoms are pushed down. I'm sure we have in our audience a number of our older veterans too, some Vietnam veterans, and a lot of times we push those symptoms away and we don't want to acknowledge it over time. So when we do that, we use a variety of different ways to do that. Some people will use substances, alcohol, as we say, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but rock and roll might not be so bad. But what happens is this stuff gets pushed away, and so many times I'll find older veterans come in years and years, 30, 40 years after their tours, after their combat tours, and they have pushed it away by working, some of them working 2, 3, and 4 jobs, becoming a workaholic and pushing those symptoms in the closet. And then all of a sudden when they stop working, wow, that closet opens up and somebody will sit in my chair and say, it's just as real as it was 40 years ago. It all comes back. So it's important to realize, so many folks ask me, will this ever go away? And, I'm very honest with the folks I work with. I'll tell them, PTSD really never completely goes away, but you do learn skills in how to cope with it and how to manage it better over your lifetime. And
that's important, to develop coping methods and strategies to learn how to deal with this constant barrage of intruding thoughts, and some folks are even affected by hallucinations and things that aren't there, like you mentioned. Jeff, has it ever happened to you? You're driving down a public street and you see a box or something and wonder if it's an IED?
To this day. To this day, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. But you mind if I piggyback on what Dr. Scott Fairchild just said?
Please, we've got about 30 seconds till the bottom of the hour, but please.
Okay, yeah, I think what it is like when he said everybody keeps it, pushed that they stay busy and stuff like that. I think what it has to do with, we're so used to having missions, we know we got to be here and there information, we got to be PT at a certain time, and we already know what we got to do for the day, for the week, and, for the month. But when we're taken away from that element, we don't have a mission anymore, and then we'll feel lost.
Jeff, can you hang on till after the break?
15 seconds.
Say again?
Can you hang on till after the break? We're going to take a break for the news. Thank you. Folks, stick with us here at American Warrior Radio. We'll be back in just a moment.